So today we're going to show you how to put feather edge boarding in at equal gaps and upright. So what I do is I've got a little 10cm block that I've cut and put a little nail or a screw in the end just so it makes it a bit easier to hold it up. And then what we do is we put it up against get it upright, which that one actually isn't, but anyway, there we are. But anyway, you get the board upright, and then against an upright board you use your 10cm block to put your next panel in, and then if you check the top and the middle and then the bottom all works neatly. That shows it's upright, and then after doing about 3 boards, if you just check it with the spirit level to make sure it's upright, because even with that you can see, or I can see from where I am, that there's a little deviation on the level, so it's surprising how quickly it goes out of upright. But it looks a lot better if it is upright and at equal distances. These are 125mm boards, but we use the 100mm block, and then it basically means we have a 25mm overlap between here, and then we nail, roughly speaking, about 25mm from the edge so we don't split the board, and then the one board will hold the other board tight, and then hopefully that will all stay nice and upright, and it just looks a lot tidier if they're evenly spaced and vertical. I don't know whether the cameraman can show you the gravel board at the bottom, but the gravel board is here and that's what they sit on, so as long as that's level and your boards are the same length, which generally speaking they are, then you should end up with a perfectly good job. This is the boarding. It's all nice and neat and upright and equally distanced, and using my little marker, 10cm marker, then it means that you use then 10 of the 125mm boards per metre, so basically 10 to the metre. And if you find you run out of boards and you've used all your 10 up, it probably means your gaps, you're overlapping too much. These are the basic tools you need to put in a fence post. So you have a tape measure, postcrete or similar, which goes off in about 10 minutes, watering can full of clean water, knife to cut the bag of postcrete, pair of sturdy gloves, post level, which is that little thing there which shows on the post, makes it a lot easier, and also a spirit level as well, possibly. The crowbar's only really necessary if the ground is a bit stony and rough when you're digging your hole. There's a post digging or trench digging spade there, which is about just over 40 centimetres long, so that's quite good for getting your holes dug out to about the right height. And then there's the post hole digging tool there, which has those nice cupped hands at the end which are rounded and sharp, so they're quite good for pulling out the soil, and it saves your back. And of course the post, or whatever sort of post you're putting in, whether it be wood or concrete, same principles arise. This is a 2.4 metre 100 by 100 post. If you're actually going to erect a fence, then you need some extra tools. There's the lime green line for getting the posts in a straight line. There's some 50mm galvanised nails, which I'm going to use to put the feather edge boarding onto the woodwork, a saw, another spirit level, and a variety of different screws, trusty hammer, and a useful drill cum screwdriver for putting it all together. So we're now going to dig our round hole, 20 centimetres in diameter, with our trusty spade, post digging spade, and we're going to dig it about 40 centimetres deep, which is about to the top of the spade blade there. Now just going to loosen the soil with the post digging spade. I should be wearing my boots. Get that nice and loose. And then what we're going to do is we're going to grab the, you can see those, post digging tool, which is very, very good. Use these, sort that, put it on a tray or a sheet, so steady up and tidy. Hopefully now you can see that the post digging spade is in the hole down to the top of the spade blade part of it, so that's about 40 centimeters down. So just going to finish clearing the hole of soil with the post hole digging spade, or I should say the post hole digger outers. Finally clear the bottom of the hole out by hand, or just give it a little tickle around with the spade, and you have to trust me, but that hole is now 40 centimeters deep. I've now placed the post in the hole, and you just have to make sure it's in the correct, you've got it in the correct alignment for whatever you're doing, whether it be a fence or touching it to a house or whatever. Just make sure it's in the right alignment before you put the concrete in and set it up level. Right, I'm now going to put clean cold water into the hole to the manufacturer's instructions as printed on the back of the bag of postcrete or whatever type of post fix you use. This we use because it goes off in about 10 minutes, so that's really very useful. Pouring. Can't use the camera with me big thick gloves on, so I take my gloves off, and now I've brought the postcrete close as possible to the hole, and then we're going to put that in bit by bit, and then we're going to use our clever little post level to get the post upright. Also got our prodding stick here to push the postcrete into position. Put a bit of postcrete in. A bit to begin with. Not to get too much of the postcrete on the post, because it tends to stain the post, which makes it look a bit horrible. So we get that now into the upright position. Hopefully the camera can see that. The beauty of the post level is that you can level two sides of the post and get it absolutely upright, rather than using the spirit level, which you have to keep moving around from side to side, which can be a bit of a pain. But so we get that upright and get rid of that post level. You can see that anyway. So we get that upright, and then the rest of the band is postcrete in. I'm just going to move postcrete, dry postcrete around the post so it's into all areas. We put a lot of water into that hole, so it's coming up through. Now push the post back into the upright position. So both the bubble that side and the bubble this side are in the centre of the lines, and then I'll just give that a final prod. Set down into there gently, just to make sure the water gets into the cement, and then put another water on top. Hopefully, that's not solid yet, but it will hopefully hold there under its own weight. If we were doing this with ordinary concrete, then we would have to support it with a couple of battens or something either side to stop it from falling over, but as this goes off pretty quickly, within 10 minutes that'll be perfectly solid. We'll just try that again with the level, just to make sure it's upright. So push the level gently but fully against the post, just to make sure it's right. And believe it or not, that postcrete is already going off, so you need to work pretty quickly. Right, the post is now upright, and it's only about 10 minutes or maybe 15 minutes have gone by, and it's quite solid already. So that's putting quite a lot of pressure on that, as you can see, and it's wobbling a bit, but it's still nearly solid. And this is the beauty of these sort of products, because when you work on your own, at least it goes off quite quickly and allows you to continue on with the job at reasonable pace. If you haven't got access to postcrete or one of these quick going off things, you can use a mixture of 6 shovelfuls of ballast to a shovelful of ordinary Portland cement, mix it up with a bit of water so it's all nicely mixed together, and then you can fit that in around your post, but you'll have to allow a lot longer for it to go off, so you need to support it probably overnight with some battens at different angles to stop the post from falling over. This is a mocked up post of what a post would look like with the different rails going across it. Yeah, right up to the top there. And basically at the bottom we have 150 by 100 block, the same thickness as the rails, put in at the very bottom of the post there. So that's right. The base of it is in line with the finished ground level, and then we screw that with a couple of screws to the post, and then we attach the 150mm gravel board to it. Now attach the gravel board to that little infill piece and made sure it's absolutely level, because that's the basis on which all our feather edge boarding will sit, and we need, as long as that's level, then the feather edge boarding will be level and look flush at the top. Then we go on up, then there's one rail across there at 20 centimetres up from the gravel board, and then the next one is 40 centimetres from the top of that rail to the bottom of the next rail, and then 40 centimetres from the top of that next rail to the bottom of the next, and then we go on up skyward, and hopefully we can just about, so we've got another 40 centimetres there to the top rail. But the top rail is critical in terms of where you position it. If you're going to use a capping rail on top, if you're not going to use a capping rail, as long as it's below, just slightly below the level of the boards, that is fine. But if you're going to put a capping rail on top, then you need to make sure that the that top rail, you ignore my final measurements and measure it from the top of the gravel board to the 180 or 182, whatever the size of the feather edge boarding are, and get it pretty close. If it's if the top rail is slightly higher than, only a millimetres higher than the feather edge boarding, then hopefully, now I've increased the height of that top rail slightly, probably by about 1 centimetre or so it's now basically 180 centimetres from the top of the gravel board to the top of the rail, and then as you can see the capping rail just sits nicely on top of the rail, and then the feather edge boarding just fits snugly underneath it, and the capping rail protects the end of the feather edge boarding. If you don't want to bother with a capping rail, it's not absolutely essential, it's just more decorative, but it does help keep the rain off the boards. But they are all treated and tannalised, so they will last for 15-20 years probably without too much problem without the capping rail on. But if you're not going to put the capping rail on, you can always reduce the height of the rail slightly, just so you just ensure that it's completely hidden from view. And then as you go around to the back of the post, when the post's all gone nice and hard from the postcrete's gone nice and hard, then if you just put a slight angle of cut, so take off the bit of post that's sticking out and just cut it off at a slight angle so as you can't see it above the boarding, and then the water will drain off towards the back of the fencing. As you see, the feather edge boarding is sitting quite nicely on the gravel board, and then the gravel board takes quite a lot of the weight to stop the fence sagging. Having said that, this is a pretty robust fence we've gone for here, much more robust than many, so sagging shouldn't be a problem. As with so many things, measuring is very important, so if you're starting from the edge of a house or your first post, then the rail starts at the furthest most edge of the post, so as close to the house as possible or as close to the edge of the post as possible, and then your third post needs to be, the centre of the third post needs to be 3.6 metres in from the house wall, so as then you can join your rails together as per this little section I've left, half and half. So basically the rail, when it meets the third post from the house or from wherever your starting point is, needs to be 3.6. If it's 3.6 metre long rails you're using, needs to finish at the centre of the post when it's in the totally upright position. If you're using differing lengths of the same thickness of rail, you can always join them at points where there isn't a post by fixing with 4 hefty screws a piece of the same size timber to the back of the join, about 30 centimetres long, so 150 attached to either side of the join, and that should give you a pretty solid finish, particularly once the boards are on. It doesn't look quite so pretty from the back side, so depending on who's going to be looking at the back side, tough. the best way to get your fence posts in a straight line when you're constructing a fence is to fix the two posts, one at the one end and one at the other end, and get those firmly concreted in or possibly bolted onto the side of the house. And then when those are all solid, tie your brightly coloured line between them as tightly as you can, and then you know the line of your posts, so then you can ensure that all posts are set against the line upright, and so they're not only upright but they're also not going to sort of wander, which when you look at a fence face on doesn't look too bad, but when you look down the line from above it just looks like a dog's hind leg, so you don't want that. Measure your desired distance for your next fence posts, and I find it useful to mark the position with a peg, and it keeps you on track. If you put the peg a little bit away from the line, then you've got room to dig out your fence post hole. And what you need to do is to dig it out a bit similarly to this, so you can see that you've got a 20 centimetre round hole, diameter hole, and you need a little bit of soil taken out to this left hand side of the line, and obviously then you've got to accommodate the 100mm or 75mm or whatever size post you're using, and then dig that hole in the appropriate place, about 400 or 40 centimetres deep. Once you've got the position roughly marked with your post digging spade, you see the smiley black face there, then you can pull back the string line just to give you room to do your digging. But then make sure when you do your next hole, put your next post in, you make sure that the string line is absolutely tight again and straight. Right, as you see, I've used the little metal peg to pull the line out of the way and dug my hole. This is only a demonstration, so I haven't dug it the full depth yet because my wife doesn't like me keep digging up the lawn, because it seems to take a long time to recover these days. Anyway, so what we're going to do now is take the peg out and let the string line go back into its straight position, and we'll just pull it tight again to make sure it's absolutely straight and in the correct position. Now this is just to prove that men can multitask, so the idea is to get the spirit level, or this post line level, which is great for this job, level in both directions, so that way and that way. Get that level, and then once it's level, move the bottom of the post as close to the line without snagging it, and then if it's upright on the post level and it's just touching the line without snagging it, then that should be just about perfect. Always make sure that the line isn't sort of obstructed in any way by bits of grass, turf, soil, shrubs, bushes, whatever, because then that would throw everything out completely. So basically, as you see at the bottom there, we'll go on around here, but you can see if there's any gap. So if it's leaning out like that, when we bring it into the upright, there shouldn't be a gap between the string and the fence posts, and also our spirit level should say it's upright on both bubbles, which is great. And then we pour water in the bottom of the hole, pour our bag of, or half a bag of postcrete in to begin with, and maybe a bit more water than the other half a bag of postcrete. If you follow the instructions on the bag of whoever supplies your fence post product, then you can't go, or shouldn't go, far wrong. Happy days. Now go and put the lawn back together again before my wife sees it.